I don't want to show a lot of the tape from last night because it's too hard to look at. But just show this one thing. We picked out one thing for people who don't watch, and they watch this show to catch up on the news. This is what the Republicans are going to show from now until Election Day.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with.
See that head?
Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death.
You see the head, the way he turned that head? He wanted to, he knew the two-shot would be up there. He wanted to have his head turning like, let's watch the guy show how crazy he is. He's looking for it. Look, this election.
You're blaming that on Trump?
No, I'm watching his theatrical ability. He is playing this.
Okay, but he didn't have to do anything. I mean, he came out, it reminded me of when Mike Tyson used to knock guys out in 90 seconds. Like, that was like 2 minutes into the debate, and I went, oh, this election is over. I mean, that was like a haymaker right away.
Look, I'm watching the guy. He is so fast on the trigger. I watched him. He comes up with, well, he pulled out of Afghanistan in a disastrous way. That's true. He didn't fire anybody. He didn't fire Jake Tapper or any of the generals. That's all true. Then he'll throw in
Jake Tapper? Okay. You mean Jake Sullivan, right? You mean Jake Sullivan, because Jake Tapper, of course, is the anchor at CNN. Listen, Freudian slips are Freudian slips. I mean, call it what it is. But in any event, this is the guy who said he had a tingle running down his leg with Obama. This is the guy who called Donald Trump's inauguration speech Hitlerian. And now they're in a panic. So we're getting the truth from some of these older, I don't want to call them statesmen, but it's like they have that statesman-like thing. I'm getting old. I don't give it. You know what? Right. And we're getting those opinions from them now that we otherwise were not privy to, like the truth, their true opinion.
oh, by the way, illegal people can get Medicare and Social Security. No, they can't. He just throws in the lies. He mixes up the lies with some truth.
Yeah.
Illegals can get health care. Yes, they can. Not Medicare, like elderly people can get Medicare, but illegals absolutely get health care. Give me a break.
And Biden is not smart enough to keep up with him. He just can't keep up with him.
Well, isn't that the whole point?
Yeah.
You need a guy to keep up with them. I feel like the whole rationale for Biden running has always been, I'm the only guy who can beat him.
Yeah.
Now I think it's inverted. I think he's the only guy who could lose to him.
I think you're right, he says. And we're going to examine that today in the whole entire context of them wigging out and talking about replacing Joe Biden, which we have discussed over and over again. I think people it's palace intrigue conversation, and it's just not sinking into some people's heads how difficult it would be to replace Joe Biden. And then even if you would manage to pull out what these laws say, and then if you would manage to pull it off, if you manage to upend the entire process, he will be excluded, or who his replacement is will be excluded. I don't want to jump too far ahead, from several ballots in several states, key states, like not unimportant states. Some that, like Ohio, he's going to lose anyway, but there are laws in these states. You cannot just decide, I don't want this guy anymore, and that's it. And we're going to look at some historic precedent people keep bringing up, and they are incorrect. And we'll explain why.
Or the guy who's sure. Oh, you agree? Yeah. So shouldn't they replace him?
I'm talking about what has to happen, but probably won't. When you want to happen, won't happen.
I don't know. I keep hearing all day from these Democrats defending
Great
this.
line
like, we can't abandon Joe Biden. What about me? I feel abandoned. I feel abandoned. I have nobody to vote for.
Poor Bill. He feels abandoned. That'll be on Friday. Poor Bill. He feels abandoned. Or, this is incredible to me because, of course, the entire Trump theme has been the abandoned man and woman in this country whom they didn't give a rat's ass about. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them. Smash that like button. Share them far and wide. And if you're on Rumble or YouTube, it would be great if you would mosey on over to Locals, because of course that is the best place to follow us. Locals, you'll get a lot more of this before others. We got the 4th of July coming up. I hope everybody's going to have a great and safe, happy Independence Day. I will be trickling out some of this stuff over the course of the next 2 days. We're going to look at some of it today, specifically regarding Donald Trump's non-white vote share. Because listen, even though I have been somebody who has been preaching this, I was way ahead of the curve on this than so many other people, took a lot of abuse over it, and now it's like common knowledge. But even I remain skeptical of the support shares that we are seeing in these polls. And I want to try to put it in a reality. We talk a lot about subgroups for sampling errors sampling errors for subgroups being higher. And I want to talk a little bit about today later, of course, if that is the case, not if that's the case, but that is the case. So let's say we're off a little bit. Is there a way to see how far off we may be? So in the Fox poll and the CNN poll, Donald Trump's getting like 30% of the black vote. I think that's too high. Yet I'm polling myself and I can see Donald Trump has roughly 30% of the black vote. So this time we decided to oversample and ask a few questions to decide whether or not some of these people are not maybe even lying about certain things, because look, they lie in polls, not huge, but we're trying to discern how much maybe. And then secondly, maybe there are just some groups that are being overrepresented. So we focused very hard this time on urban black voters. The results for Joe Biden are in this poll are probably going to be the worst results we have ever published for Joe Biden. This, for people, there's like all these polls, YouGov coming out. All of these people who are like repeat offenders and are wrong have been way outside the consensus when it comes to our polling, the New York Times, others, even Rasmussen, who has had their share of overrepresenting, more conservative minorities. But I think it's real clear now when you look at the Fox poll, the CNN poll, NBC, the New York Times, our polling, this is real. So it moves his lead north of the 2 points that you've been seeing. And if we can decide how much maybe this support is overstated, maybe we can give you a more realistic idea of what to expect. Now, that being said, there is no doubt in my mind that this will be a historic support share for a Republican candidate. I don't know what's going to change it between now and Election Day. I went back and looked at our 2016 daily tracking poll. We released 7-day rolling averages at first and then 3-day rolling averages as we got closer to Labor Day. Not much really changed. It's amazing to me how little changed. You may have had some voters from each day saying, no, I'm a 10, because the likely voter model was a little bit different back then, and this one works better. We overstated Trump nationally a little bit, just a little bit, but it was not because of the likely voter model, mainly because we were weighting more traditionally instead of and I mean by region, specifically by region. We were weighting more traditionally instead of, how much of that blue vote, bottom line, Hillary Clinton's entire popular vote margin came from 2 major metro cities. That's it. So we had a more traditional model. And we moved it over a little bit. You were looking at like a Hillary 1.2, which is better than what it was. We had Trump, I believe it was like 0.2, 0.6. Or yeah, so actually, I'm sorry. We had Trump 0.2 or 0.6. I'm messing this all up. And it would have been a Hillary 1.6. So that was all due to the census division weights. And I said region, but it really is more division. And we've, come a long way since then, even though we did a very good job back then. And I'm looking at it now, though, and the bottom line is weighting this here a little bit more this way, that way, doesn't change the fact that the demographics themselves largely told you from the very beginning how that election was going to play out. There's not much Joe Biden can do from between now and election day to change some of these margins. So we'll look at the non-white vote share for Trump, and then we're going to look at the white working class, okay, and what Biden's levels are, because we are leaning people, and we have that initial question, who are you going to vote for? And then when we do it with the lean, the margins are outrageous. I'm just going to tell you right, outrage. So I don't see how they fix this. But that being said, that Bill Maher clip had everything, and I chose that clip because it had every topic and every, question, right? When you're arguing something, you're seeking to answer a question. And Democrats right now are struggling still, of course, to deal with the fallout of the debate. And they're struggling to answer this question about Joe Biden's viability as a candidate. So that Bill Maher clip had all those different aspects and all those different questions. He used to be the one guy who could beat Trump, was thought. Now he's the one guy who can't, Bill Maher argued. Is that really true? It's not. So I just tweeted before I shared the links to these to the show for people to get on and watch the show. Saginaw, Michigan, Genesee, Michigan, Juneau County, Wisconsin, Maricopa County, Arizona, Erie County, Pennsylvania, Northampton County, Pennsylvania, Scranton, Pennsylvania, Pike, Pennsylvania, Luzerne, Pennsylvania. The question is not about the palace intrigue. These questions that matter are not about anything to do with the palace intrigue nonsense that you hear on a daily basis, or the very superficial arguments that you will hear people make. The question, if Democrats are going to try to do the, really legally undoable, but we are living in a banana republic at this point. So what difference, right? We have to examine that path. If Democrats are going to go down that road and take the risk, and it's not even a risk, and they will not appear on ballots in some states. It's that simple. Unless they bribe people. Right, Laura? What are they going to do? I guess they could, but they're not going to bribe states like Ohio. That's not going to happen. They're off the ballot. Joe Biden was already having a problem getting on the ballot because of Ohio's rule change. Even a state like New York just changed their laws. It will be incredibly difficult to make that happen. And then there's the political aspect of this. But if they're going to take these monumental steps, why would they take it for somebody who's a sure loser? Kamala Harris is still a much weaker candidate. Joe Biden's polling allegedly leaked. It's very bad. The internal polling mirrors more what big data poll is going to come out in a national election. Because if this polling, which I always trust what we find, even when it's just outrageous. If this polling is accurate, Georgia is not a 3-point race. Georgia is a 10-point Trump win. It's over quickly. Arizona is not a 3 to 5 point margin. Arizona is a 8 to 10 point win for Donald Trump. Minnesota is a nail biter, flip a coin. Wisconsin, 5 points. Pennsylvania, 5 points. Michigan, 5 points. All around in that rough, in that ballpark, in that area. Florida is not even a question. You have states like Maine that are going to be deadly close. Nebraska's in contested congressional district, going to Trump. This is bad. And people are like, I've seen some people who know nothing about polling, yet they talk like they're experts. Well, this isn't that big of a swing. You are citing a poll that hasn't called an election correctly in this country, a presidential election correctly, I don't think ever. I don't even think they were around to poll Romney versus Obama. Was YouGov around back then? I don't think so. This is ludicrous to me. If you don't think that debate had an impact on the race, then you're looking at this through too much of a traditional lens. And unfortunately, you're going to be left out. But you're going to be left out here. All right, let me play a clip first of Democrats having a meltdown, and then we will listen. I have said everything in this clip that I'm going to play, not this one coming up, but the next one. I have said everything that this guy is going to say probably 10 times already. I just want you to hear it from somebody else so you can understand that this is, I don't understand why this is being left out. And you will understand the same. Like, you will wonder why this is being left out of the conversation, because it is, of course, not as simple as people are trying to make it out. But let's pretend the New York Times is accurate. And for those who don't know, the New York Times just came out with a report basically saying that Biden is weighing whether or not to drop out of the race. The White House, what's his name? Andrew Bates just came out and denied it not long ago. Of course, what else are they going to do? But remember, folks, it is the New York Times. So if you're a Trump supporter out there and you're like, but what else are they going to do, Rich? Okay. And I would submit to you, how many times did the New York Times lie under your president? So let's just chill out for a second. Donors could be panicking, which of course is going to lead to panicking on behalf of some lawmakers. They're going to go to the New York Times and they're going to make sure this story gets printed. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying let's just make sure that we understand who it is. This is the same paper who, during the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, fabricated a couple to try to demonstrate with bogus math that left out SALT, that left out the child tax credits, that left out earned income credits from their equation, that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act would basically be a tax increase on working Joe and Jill who were fake. Let's just keep that in the back of our mind for a second. And on and on. I mean, there's countless others. And you want a recap of the countless other fake stories the New York Times has published. You can read Daniel R. Street's books, danielrstreet.com. And by the way, I have something to read you that he sent me that I thought was important to share on the show about these cases and the Supreme Court ruling and the impact it may have on Trump's sentencing, which was postponed until September. And that's what the Supreme Court decision and the postponement. I want to read you Daniel's take. But first, let's do this clip real quick, because there have been all these other reports saying this.
Is breaking, Jake. Top Democratic leaders, former administration officials, current administration officials, major donors are all telling us privately, and now we're hearing it publicly, that they think that President Biden needs to step aside for the good of the party, for the good of the country. A couple of things they're saying. They do not think the debate was just a one-off event. They think that there is a health problem. They also say you cannot unsee the debate. They're worried, obviously, because of Donald Trump, who they see as an existential threat to democracy, but they're also worried about down ballot races, losing the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
Okay, so they are going to worry very, very soon about down ballot races. And just to peek at our poll real quick, let me just look and make sure that something hasn't changed before I open my big mouth. It does appear Republicans now, for the second straight month in a row in our polling, do have a lead, and they do. Okay. However, it is a smaller lead than Trump has over Biden, and hiccups. And it is not as marginally strong as Trump's lead is. So in other words, Trump's vote share is higher than generic Republicans have on the congressional ballot, and his margin is bigger. That is the saving grace for Democrats right now. And there will be fear that Biden will start to take down some of these people. When we get closer to the election, for instance, Donald Trump, who is currently ahead in Joe Biden's own internal polling by 10 points in Arizona, is going to go to Maricopa and tell the people of Maricopa who are voting for him instead of Joe Biden that they cannot vote for Ruben Gallegos, that Kerry Lake is the only one who will support his agenda. An agenda that they are telling pollsters in huge margins was a much more successful agenda than the Joe Biden agenda, which Ruben Gallegos supports. That's going to happen. Bob Casey is he's a tough cookie, all right? But Pennsylvania Erie County, Pennsylvania is going to hear from Donald Trump that you have to vote for David McCormick. You understand what I'm saying? Many times in the course of modern, politics, that hasn't mattered. In the case of Donald Trump, it does. A Trump endorsement and Trump actively campaigning for you does move the needle. I've seen it move the needle, like in contested race, like Rick Sancombe versus Connor Lamb when Trump was president. I saw him move the needle 8 points in 48 hours. This is a powerful endorsement, and he has not really begun to do that yet. By the way, what he did do is release a video on Big Pharma. Apparently, the Four Freedoms poll conducted with Barnes got through to various campaigns, and they are moving on that. That was a very surprising thing. I got that message last night. Like, hey, did you see the president's video? He is taking up issues you polled in that poll. So smart move, a no-brainer. Nobody likes Big Pharma except for educated liberals who are dying to bend over and get the next COVID shot in their ass cheek. Nobody likes Big Pharma. They've been poisoning people for decades in this country, and middle America can't stand them. All right. So the next clip, should I do that one first or should I do this one? Okay. I don't want to repeat this like right before the clip, but just actually, I don't even have to. If you watch Inside the Numbers, you know what I've been harping on over and over and over again. This takes the political question here about replacing Joe Biden, all right? And it puts it on the table because we're hearing, well, they replaced Lyndon Johnson. Okay. There is one example in the modern era of replacing an incumbent president. One. There are two, if you consider the era of our current system of electing presidents in the way that we do, both being Democrats. And there's really only one that's even closer to being comparable. The other one's Truman. All right. But they're both different worlds, but there are two very important differences between these examples. And I've said them over and over. I'm going to just run this clip and let you hear it out of somebody else's mouth.
Poll that is down in the last 24 hours. Should Joe Biden leave the presidential race after the debate? Look, overall, yeah, the majority of Americans, 56%,
overall,
yeah, he should leave the race. But look among Democrats. This is Joe Biden's base. This is why he is the president. They nominated him back in 2020. They nominated him again in 2024. 66% of Democrats say no, he should not leave the race. And of course, it's going to be these Democratic voters who put the pressure on their members of Congress, their governors, the elected officials, party actors to try and get Biden to leave. At this particular point, though, the Democratic activists are not necessarily going to put the pressure on Joe Biden because the fact of the matter is most Democratic voters, 2/3 of them, want Joe Biden to stay in this race. They don't want him to quit, Kate.
Okay, before I continue with the rest of it, this is so crucially important. I really can't overstate it. After the Billy Bush tape, everybody panicked on the Republican side. My buddy Steve has told this story a million times. Ryan Priebus said, maybe we need to figure out a way to kick this to kick the ticket to Mike Pence. They began to look for legal ways to do that. By the way, several of these states, their laws have changed by now. And I'm talking about the states that are going to be contested. Their laws have even changed since 2016. So it was tough back then. I'm thinking off the top of my head, 3 states, it's tougher now. But they all panicked. We're talking about October, and they all wanted Donald Trump to make a video, concede, the race was over, and somehow argue that you're really voting for me if you vote for Mike Pence. And everybody from the Republican Party in Florida, the Florida Republican Party, to the Republican Party of Ohio, which already didn't back him that much. It was controlled by John Kasich. Everywhere, except for like Michigan and some people in Pennsylvania. But generally speaking, everybody was jumping ship and abandoning Donald Trump. And it was only Steve Bannon who came out and said, point blank, you're going to win this election 100%. And everyone thought he was crazy. And Steve said, you're talking about all these things. I'm hearing blah, 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 blah. This one won't back me. That one won't back me. None of that matters. The voters voted for you, sir. The only thing that matters is what they say. You're going to win this election 100%. They put you in this nomination, and the rest of the country is tired of the trade, tired of the immigration, tired of the Clintons, tired of the status quo. They're going to overlook this tape, and they're going to vote for you. One person said that. One. He's currently sitting in jail right now, which I hadn't gotten a chance to respond to because, as you all know, I'm obviously personal friends with Steve Bannon. It's disgusting. I haven't gotten a chance to respond to it yet because, of course, it didn't happen after our show. But he was right. Guys got political instincts. Few have. And you're going to tell those people. Because what is that 66%? Joe Biden got 80, let's call it 80% of the Democratic vote, even with all of the embarrassments that he got in these primaries. 8 and 10. So what, 14% are abandoning him? The others are not. You're going to tell 2/3 of the Democratic Party that you know better than them and their vote doesn't matter? No, I don't think so. So the only way, and I know this from people talking, the only way they see this to be a viable option is what I told you last week. Kamala Harris. And that they will make the argument that Reince Priebus wanted Donald Trump to make to the Republican primary voter in 2016. You voted for me. Thank you so much for your support. I'm so honored. Blah, 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 blah. Now I'm going to need you to honor me further and vote for Kamala Harris because I'm stepping down. Forget the fact that stepping down does not get around some of these state laws. Okay, it doesn't. They didn't vote for Kamala Harris. They voted for Joe Biden. And Kamala Harris is not going to fill those shoes. And I wasn't trying to make an insult. I was trying to make a point on social media. Somebody put up a clip of Kamala Harris and said, well, she does a great impression of a Jewish mother. And I was simply making the point. I wasn't being I said, wait until you see her impression of a woman who sleeps her way to the top, bangs her way to the top. Because the entire country is going to see it. That's what you're going to be dealing with. So there are going to be eventually these conversations, and she's not going to slip through the cracks. Oh, by the way, Gavin Newsom is in D.C. today, which is important, and we're going to read that article in a second. Actually, let's read that article first before we, there's another video that I want to share with you because, look, it's important that we give both sides. It's a very, very, very difficult decision. It's a no. Honestly, this is a no-win situation for Democrats. It's a no-win situation. There's usually the expressions like, well, they're just caught in a rock and a hard place. Or, you said, there's no good decision here. There's no easy decision. I think you got to take it a little bit farther. I think this is a no-win situation at this point. We all know the negatives with Joe Biden. We do. But we're overlooking the big negatives with them replacing him with Kamala Harris. And I just don't think that is the smarter choice. You're going to be off balance. They're going to take this incredible step to ignore the will of the voter. We're not even ignore it. They're going to overrule the will of their voter. They're going to overrule it. And if they're going to do that, my God, it better be for Barack Obama to serve a third term. I still think Trump would beat Obama, by the way. I do. How? Why? Are the 31 pivot counties in Iowa going to vote for Barack Obama now? After voting for Donald Trump, not once but twice? No, they're not. Is Juneau County, Wisconsin, going to go back to Barack Obama? No, it's not. Barack Obama's party, with him at the helm, have forsaken those people. And those battleground counties all over the country, he would need to pull what Joe Biden pulled in 2020, and I don't even think that's possible anymore. Why? Because he would need to do better in Kent County, Michigan. He would need to do better in Saginaw, Michigan. I just don't see it. Not when his party's doing electrical vehicles. And again, think about this. Think about this. Monroe County, Pennsylvania. Who is going to be stronger there? Joe Biden or Kamala Harris? Come on, man. Stop texting me during the show. I'm going to block you. And by the way, I'm answering your question right now. Watch the show. Anyway, let's go. Oh, I thought you... So I guess you guys saw that. I thought I thought the political article was up. All right. Oh my God. Gavin Newsom travels to Washington to stand with Biden amid calls to step down. Big deal. California faction. California faction. I'm telling you too, like, that's a whole other layer to this. If you're Gavin Newsom, you don't want Kamala Harris to take over for Joe Biden. You want Joe Biden to lose. Let's get real. You want him to lose. It's difficult for a party to win 3 consecutive terms in the White House in a row. You don't want Joe Biden to win. You don't want Kamala to win. Because how are you going to unseat Kamala for the nomination in 2028? Good luck with that. She's going to be the sitting president if she was to win, which she won't. But if she was, she may even be the runner-up if she loses. If you're Gavin Newsom, who absolutely wants to be president, you want Joe Biden to stay in this race. That splits the California faction on this question right down the middle right now, right off the bat. The California governor is both a staunch defender of the president and frequently mentioned as a potential successor should Biden decide not to run. He knows he cannot leapfrog the first non-white, first female vice president of the United States. Oh, how did I not get that clip loaded up and ready to go when we are done with this? Oh, man. Where is it? There it is. Hold up. That's got to be ready to rock and roll when we're done with this clip. To follow up on where I'm going with this. Governor Gavin Newsom will travel to Washington on Wednesday to attend a meeting between President Joe Biden and Democratic governors amid the fallout from the president's disastrous debate with former President Donald Trump. Gavin Newsom will head to the White House tomorrow to attend the governor's meeting and to stand with the president, a spokesperson for the California Democrats said late Tuesday. And by the way, I just want to make clear with the polling, what we're seeing here is more of a drop with Biden than a rise with Trump, and that's true. It looks like Trump will be up about a point with leaners, and he will be above 50%. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Not with the immediates, but with the leaners. All right, so with the leaners taken together, for those who don't know, maybe are new to the term, those who are undecided when we ask initially who they are voting for, and then we push them and we force them to make a decision like, look, if the election was held today, who would you vote for? And that is where that combined level of support is what I'm talking about when I say that Trump will be above 50%. All right. Biden will have declined somewhat. And then when leaned, he is not rising because he did lose some more support. He is not rising to the level where he was before. And I would say this I will say this just for you to knowledge. his approval rating really didn't move all that much, which is interesting, right? It declined. So it's maybe down a point or two, and don't twist my arm and ask for exact right here. I'm just telling you what I'm gleaming from it right now. That's what it looks like to me. And then when that third party option is added, that's where he's really hurt, because those people who otherwise would kind of vote for a Democrat are still throwing their vote away. Here's the problem for Democrats and the replacement idea. Trump is still not going to lose that majority support with those leaners, even if that's what it suggests. It suggests that even if you were to put another Democratic candidate forward, Trump is still going to win. So again, you have to think, are you going to do all of this and cause all of this friction within your party for a loss anyway? All right. As White House aides scramble to tamp down fears about the president's cognitive abilities in the wake of Thursday's shaky debate performance, that's a great way to put it. The last adjective they used was disastrous. Now they're using shaky. Those two they're not synonyms. All right. Biden will get, in the wake of all of that, Biden will gather with Democratic governors and congressional leaders Wednesday evening. And that's tonight, of course. The meeting follows a Monday call when 24 Democratic governors gathered to discuss among themselves how they should respond to the crisis situation. Newsom, and by the way, shaky leads to a crisis. Newsom, whose name frequently appears in polls alongside other Democratic surrogates like Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker as potential replacements, was not on the call. So Newsom was not on the call. Newsom is a steadfast Biden supporter and was on hand in Atlanta last week to try to buoy the president from the spin room after the debate that saw the 81-year-old incumbent appearing confused and struggling to answer some questions. What? Newsom, while acknowledging a lackluster performance, quickly dismissed calls for Biden to step aside, saying that the American public should look at his record in office, not a 90-minute debate. Newsom has continued offering vocal and financial support for the Biden campaign in the days since the debate, helping raise several $100,000 for the president and the Democratic National Committee in the hours after it aired. Meanwhile, Newsom did his best to ignore intense speculation about whether he would step in to replace the president on the Democratic ticket. By the way, there is another. Let me get the cash on hand. Let me get the FEC reports real quick. Okay, so Biden spent a fortune throughout the spring and early summer. Yeah, well, I mean, there's only 9 technical days in the summer solstice in this period, but, all the way the period leading up to June 30th, Biden spent a fortune basically calling Trump a felon and a criminal on these ads and a threat to democracy. There was some messaging about abortion mixed in there, but not as much. It was very, very heavily weighted to making Trump out to be, as the Bush campaign made Kerry out in the spring of 2004, to be a out-of-touch liberal, coastal liberal elite. They went with Trump as a criminal and a threat to democracy. They had cash on hand as of June 30th, $240 million. Trump had $285 million. They blew $250 million from one period to another. In March, Biden had $155 million cash on hand. Trump only had $42 million. They really made a tactical error here. Calculated error, whatever you want to call it. Not only did they waste money and fail, it's a waste. It's better to say, not only did they choose to spend hundreds of millions on a message that is not resonating, they chose to spend it on the message that appears to have fueled Trump's fundraising. The threat to democracy / lawfare narrative war. Biden and the Democrats are losing. And by the way, I have it set to black voters. I will show you the raw on who trusts who on issues. All right, so we have this. Moving on. And that's it. That's all. That's that's it. So that leads us to where these other congressional leaders stand. And one who is very, very influential is, of course, the South Carolina Congressman, James Clyburn, who is almost exclusively responsible, the other party being Barack Obama, for Joe Biden winning the 2020 Democratic nomination. He could not do it on his own. He was being rejected by the voters resoundingly. And he's the first nominee and president to win the nomination after getting thrashed in the first early states as badly as he did. And again, I mean, Bill Clinton was the comeback kid. He placed. Biden got creamed. All right, so in the states that matter the most, in the states where people see you when they shake your hand and they talk to you and they interact with you, don't you find it funny that Iowa, Nevada, New Hampshire, and by the way, Nevada's not white. Don't you find it funny that they rejected Joe Biden and the big money buy, big money ad buying states, expensive media markets where they just put up bullshit. Sorry, pardon my French. With Joe Biden and James Clyburn saying he's the only one who can win. They're the ones who propelled Joe Biden to the presidency. Because there's all of this talk about, he's not even the same man that he was in 2020. He was senile in 2020. They just hid it from everybody. Now, the nootropics worked better. And Victor Davis Hanson was on Megyn Kelly. I think he said it right. Like, during the State of the Union, they just worked better. You could see it didn't revamp his mind, but it did keep him animated, which is the word Victor used. They kept him animated. These drugs aren't working anymore. And they failed to even do that. All right, but here's James Clyburn. Let's listen to what he said. I think the headlines covering what James Clyburn said are wrong. I think it's more important what he says first. Now, the anchor will pivot to Kamala Harris to get his opinion. But I think what he wants to do is very clear, and he's being misquoted here. Or at least he's being misquoted. Or they're emphasizing the wrong part of the conversation. So here's the beginning part before he's asked about Kamala Harris. Here's before that, plus when he's asked about Harris.
Would you feel if there is a decision for him to step down, if he decides that, and he has to decide that, or if the party pressures him to do that, how would you feel if they worked around and tried to go around Kamala Harris because of her lack of high poll numbers and popularity and broadly based? Do you think it's hers to have if it is not his?
Okay. Now, she pivots this conversation from Biden and his support for Biden to Kamala Harris. And listen what he does first before, again, the clickbait, put up their headlines. Listen to what he says first in response to that question. He doesn't answer it. He does something else.
I will support her if he were to step aside. But I want to support her going forward at sometime in the future. I want this ticket to continue to be Biden-Harris. And then we'll see what happens after the next election. No, this party should not in any way do anything to work around Ms. Harris. We should do everything we can to bolster her, whether it's in second place or at the top of the ticket.
So he is asked about Kamala Harris, and instead of giving a full answer to what she asked him, he immediately pivots. But I'm looking forward to supporting her in the future. I am not looking forward to supporting her right now. I want to support Joe Biden. That's a big deal because Joe Biden has a major problem with black voters. He's going to need the voices of people like James Clyburn to keep this margin from getting any uglier than it already is. With that said, When we come back, I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll start to dig into that a little bit more. I got one more clip that I do want to play. I have others, but we have to start looking at the numbers, or else we could potentially we could run out of time. I don't know what to do about Friday yet. I'm inclined to have a show on Friday. It's just that I really want to get the polling out to you guys. And locals, of course, I mean, you'll get it obviously first, but I wanted to get that out, and there's only so many hours in a day, so we'll see, and we'll take it by year. But here we go. Let's take a break. When we come back, and I'm going to play a clip for you guys on the break. I already referred previously to what I was going to play. And when we come back, we'll start to look at the last roundup, these like clips, and look at some of the other polls that we got. All right. We'll be back. Oh, don't forget, if you like the videos, don't forget to like them, share them far and wide. If you're on YouTube, move on over to Rumble. Go ahead and subscribe and like it there as well. And of course, share it far and wide. The best place to follow us is right there, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. Here is Steve Bannon pre-imprisonment.
I am proud to go to prison. If this is what it takes to stand up to tyranny, if this is what it takes to stand up to the Garland, corrupt, criminal DOJ, if this is what it takes to stand up to Nancy Pelosi, if this is what it takes to stand up to Joe Biden, I'm proud to do it.
Bravo.
Father, can you say a few words?
I'm not authorized to talk to the media.
You're not?
No.
Well, thank you for coming.
I agree with your positions, and I'll be praying for you. I'm in the St. Ignatius Retreat House, 15 minutes away.
You are?
Yeah, I'll get you whatever you need.
Father, don't pray for me. Pray for our enemies.
Yeah.
Right? Pray.
They need
They're the ones who are going to need the prayers. Thank you, Father.
Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and the snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all evil spirits who wander through the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. Ave Maria Purissima. God bless you. Thank you.
All right, we're back to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them. Smash the like button, share them far and wide. If you're on Rumble, if you're on YouTube, go on over to Rumble and subscribe there as well and hit the like button. It is enormously helpful to us, enormously. All right, let's get a read going here, and then we will get to our next and final clip. All right, and we will move on along. I swear to God, I'm going to block this guy. All right. Listen, folks, it's all shaky out there right now. The presidency is up in the air. Nobody knows what's going on. Overseas, abroad, and of course at home, the markets, the economies, it's like a house of cards. So it's a great place to be looking for protection and be looking for other places to diversify your money. Stocks can be unpredictable. And of course, inflation has a real impact on the value of currencies. That's why I want to talk to you about Freedom Gold USA. If you've ever thought about investing in gold or silver, or you're just interested in diversifying your portfolio, Freedom Gold USA is definitely the company that you should look at. What I like about them, of course, is that they're just trying to help you make smart investment choices in precious metals. They believe the more you know, the better. So they offer a lot of free guides and advice and consultations so that you can have the information you need to make confident decisions without pressure, without a hard sell. And what's also different about them is that they will guarantee competitive pricing on some of the best quality and purity gold and silver that you'll find. When you are a viewer or watcher of Inside the Numbers or anything to do with the People's Pundit, you take advantage of this offer. They have several special deals going on right now. They have lowered the minimum requirement for you to get started. You know, some of these companies, yeah, sure, I'll help you 50 grand. Yeah, sure, I'll help you 20 grand. And even Freedom Gold USA is a minimum of 5. But for you, it is not. They have dropped that all the way down to just $500. And by the way, you'll get thrown into a raffle where you can earn even more free precious metals. So I am not getting in that raffle to make sure, otherwise I would, to make sure that one of you guys do get it. You don't have to worry about extra fees. They'll give you free shipping and insurance on every order. Plus, you might even get some free gold or silver on qualifying purchases if you do start higher. They'll give you a $500 credit when you open a gold or silver IRA. It's a nice bonus. And of course, the best part, like I say all the time, is it is hassle-free. You will not get any pushy sales tactics. So if you want to learn more, I recommend giving Freedom Gold a call at 888-279-3592. 888-279-3592. Now, that is just our number, but don't forget, it doesn't hurt to tell them anyway that you're calling from the People's Pundit. Or you could go to their website, which is also specifically for us, freedomgoldusa.com/rich. freedomgoldusa.com/rich. Check out what latest special offers they have and what kind of deals you may qualify for on top of what we already told you about. Let me give you the number again, 888-279-3592. 888-279-3592. Again, folks, if they lowered the minimum requirement, and you will get thrown in a raffle to earn more, to earn free currency. It doesn't get any better than that in the world of investing in precious metals. All right. You can go to some of those other shops. Sure. But free insurance, free shipping, you just can't beat it. And plus, Brian was on, put a face to it. Great guy. Super helpful, super knowledgeable, by the way. Had like an hour-long conversation. This guy is smart as a whip. Some people are just brokers and others know their trade. Brian's one of them. All right, let's do it. I got to play this clip. We're back.
Good morning. Top of the hour. You are live in the CNN newsroom. I'm Erica Hill in New York, and we do begin this hour with breaking news. The New York Times reporting President Biden has told an ally, a close ally, he is considering whether to stay in the presidential race. This is the first indication Mr. Biden could end his re-election bid as the fallout from his disastrous debate performance continues to be felt.
All right. That's what they say anyway. And again, like I said, Andrew Bate immediately came out and dismissed that, said the New York Times did not give us enough time to respond. It was like a 7-minute window. Honestly, I'm tempted to believe Andrew. This is how these people roll. Peter Baker must have given me 2 minutes to respond before he ran that smear piece. Had he waited another 2 minutes, I would have given him a litany of responses. Here, Peter, is how your polling firm performed. Nope. Instead, I got he did not respond. That's the same thing. It's the same thing. He didn't respond because you send out the email just so you can pretend you gave people a chance to respond, but you didn't actually give people a chance to respond. Hell, Amy from PolitiFact should be fired. That same thing they did to Sean Parnell. Exactly. So I've been in this boat before. So I'm tempted to believe Andrew. It's the White House. They're a little bit busy. 7 minutes? Come on. All right. So that's what they are thinking anyway. And that's what they're claiming. I don't know if I believe it, but I do believe in the panic. There's no doubt that there is widespread panic. We've played already a bunch of clips. Here's why there can be, by the way, and then we're going to take a look at some of those numbers.
President's defenders that his age was also considered an issue 4 years ago.
If you look at the polling now, compare it to what was pre-debate and compare it to what was 4 years ago, it's just not even on the same planet, Anderson. If you ask voters now, does Biden have the mental fitness, in fact, to be president, those numbers are incredibly low. The percentage who say he does not have the mental fitness, look at this. 72% say he does not have the mental fitness in order to be president right now.
Hold on, time out. Breaking. Actually, let's let Harry finish, and then I'll tell you what happened.
It's up from 65% pre-debate, but compare that to 4 years ago, the percentage of voters who said that Biden was too old. It was just 36%. That's half the level that we're looking at right now. These numbers are not anywhere close to being the same. 4 years ago, voters, for the most part, thought Joe Biden was with it. He could handle the job as president. You look at those numbers now. The fact is, voters do not even see them on the same planet. They don't think Biden's with it. They do not believe he has the mental fitness to be president. And I have to be honest with you, I don't know how he wins with the numbers that we see right now. There is no precedent for the numbers that we're seeing right now for someone running for president, letting alone getting a nomination. These are the types of numbers, when you combine them with some of the numbers that we're seeing post-debate that show him trailing Donald Trump, these are the types of numbers that could end a campaign if he can't turn them around.
There is some comparison being made between Biden's first debate performance and Ronald Reagan's, and there were questions raised after Reagan's first debate.
Oh my God. We've been over this before, but again, it's nice to hear it out of somebody else's mouth. Let's see what Harry has to say in response to this.
Debate performance. He came
My
back
God,
with
dude,
a second
you
better
gotta be
one.
shit.
He came back with the second better one, but the fact is, if you look at the numbers that Ronald Reagan had after that first debate, the percentage of voters who said that Ronald Reagan was too old, look at this. It was just 27%. It was 27%. Age was an issue at 27%.
That was after
the first debate. That wasn't before the first debate. That was after the first debate. And I averaged 2 polls there. So it's not like we're just looking at one number back in 84. We're looking at 2 polls, average them together. There's 27% who said that Ronald Reagan was too old. Now that number for Joe Biden, who says that he doesn't have the mental fitness to be president, is well more than double. It's 72%. Ronald Reagan was able to recover in that second debate because voters were willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. The fact is, voters might have been willing to give Joe Biden the benefit of the doubt going to the first debate, but afterwards, I don't see it.
All right.
All right. I don't see it. All right. All right. Listen. All right. These people. The Vanderbilts. Biltmore, baby. I got to tell you, at least the fam knows how to decorate for Christmas, Anderson. I mean, I got to give you that. I even have your damn tree. I do. I'm not going to lie. Grammy's spruce it's amazing. Got to give it to you. And Laura does a great job doing it. I happen to like how Laura decorates it better, but I digress. The woman knows her stuff. What can I say? Listen, the Ronald Reagan comparison to me is insane. Ronald Reagan was able to get through some of those debates. He looked physically, and yes, there were some questions about his mental state of mind. The man was shot. I think Bill O'Reilly did a decent job explaining what the reality was behind Reagan's fitness, both mentally and physically, but he got through it and he wasn't checked out. Reagan also had much fuller days, even after the shooting. And I think also another one, Larry Schweikert has had like unparalleled access to the Reagan library and wrote a great book on Reagan. It's worth finding out, but it's a little bit asinine to pretend as if Ronald Reagan was not diminished, both physically and mentally, after the shooting. That being said, we're not talking about this. Now, later, they abused Reagan, and it's sad. The very first, hold on with that said, because we have to bring this up. In 88, Herbert Bush did not convince the Republican voter, let alone the rest of the country, that he would be a third Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan got up there, and you could see how he struggled. He got up there and said, listen, George will do a good job. And the country, it was one of the most influential convention speeches there has been. And the country listened and said, okay, Ronnie, all right. And they gave him a shot. Not only did they give him a shot, I mean, he won overwhelmingly. That is the last election where Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania did not all vote together. Wisconsin being the, birthplace of labor, the labor movement, and also certainly having a different Scandinavian population than Michigan and Pennsylvania, voted instead for Dukakis. But that was the last time they had broken away from each other, even in races where they were very, very narrow margins in some of these states. They still, nonetheless, for the next 8 elections, voted together. So this idea, that's why 538 is such a joke. 538 is still the only election forecast that has Biden winning. It goes to show you what an absolute joke it is. And by the way, so is Crystal Ball. The fact that they just moved the Midwest to toss up now, when Trump, because of the debate, when Trump has been leading in those states for months, he's been leading in these states. They just now move it to a toss-up because of a debate. Kyle Your boss has been saying for 30 years that debates don't matter. Now you move a rating because of a debate? You guys are just fundamentally unserious, man, at this point. It's not a model. It's your effing opinion. Drop the shit. Nobody believes you anymore. It's just so pathetic. Yeah, and Tom and Mark Pryor was going to hold back Tom Cotton in Arkansas. You're a flipping joke, bro. You really are. Academics, my ass. Maybe you do fit in with academics. I don't know. Maybe academia is just hopeless and unsalvageable at this point, and that's it. But, you know, it's just sad to see all these guys who pioneered this stuff with election forecasting just completely lose all credibility. Completely lose all credibility. They haven't voted separately since 1988. And that was like, there was a reason for that one election to be an outlier, an explainable reason why Wisconsin would go with the caucus over Bush. Anyway, getting back to it, the difference being here is that then in 92, when Bush was in trouble, Reagan went to the convention again. And then you could see a real diminished Ronald Reagan and damn near elder abuse at that point. I mean, Republicans still, and this is the position they may find themselves in now, if they don't take a different route than the route they took in the post-Reagan era when it comes to the post-Trump era. They could end up like the Republicans of 92, the late 80s and early 90s, full of shit, you know what, riding off a popular individual who was trying to take the party in a different direction, which is, by the way, back to their roots. But a bunch of neocons and never Trump hacks back then, of course, they were posing. They were all anti-Reagan, and then Reagan became so popular, they jumped on Reagan's bandwagon. But after Reagan, they wanted to go right back to the normalcy of the Ford eras, right back to the normalcy of Gerald Ford. And they got whooped. They could end up there again. But even a point, you know, I'm coming full circle here. That took until 1992 for Ronald Reagan to be in the position that Joe Biden is in now. And listen to Harry talk about how, look at it, it's now 70 something. Folks, 2/3 of the country before thought that Biden was diminished and unfit to be president. Now it's in the 70s. Those are both incredibly horrible numbers, which brings up a whole other question when it comes to replacing Joe Biden. Brings up a whole other question. If Joe Biden, this is the problem Democrats will have if they move to replace Joe Biden with Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris will have to be president right now. Right now. What? Why? If the man is unfit to run for the office of the presidency, he is unfit to run the office of the presidency. If the man is unfit to run for the office of the presidency, he is unfit to run the office of the presidency. Do you understand what I'm saying? You cannot tell the country that Joe Biden is gone, incapable of running for re-election, so we're going to pass it to Kamala Harris this fall, and also argue that he can maintain his role as president until that time. No way. No way. Which then is going to put Kamala Harris in a job she is unqualified to do. It will put her in a job she's not going to be able to do. It'll put her in a job she will be unpopular at doing. You understand what I'm saying? Like, this is not a better solution for Democrats, and I don't think there is a good solution. I just don't. All right, let's take a look at some of the black voters we're talking to. We have been talking to for the last couple of days, shall we? All right. So I'm showing you the raw as it comes in to different stuff. Oop, let me just make sure there's no personal identifiable information. Hold on. I need to make sure names and addresses are off. This. Dun, 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 dun. All right, they are. Okay. First and foremost, remember I told you there has got to be some way that we can determine who may be lying and who may not be. Donald Trump got apparently ballpark 9 to 12% of the African American vote, the black vote, in 2020. This is not going to be 100%, but it can give us some idea of how high a sampling group, how high a sampling error for a subgroup may be. This is first and foremost urban voters only. And we spoke to, I believe, 435 black voters overall. This is just those who live in an urban area. They're 68.4 certain to vote. That is lower than the nation overall, which is now ballpark around 73%. 2/3 said that they voted in the midterm elections. 1/3 did not. 75% said that they voted in 2020. 25% did not. And remember that, because I thought to myself, maybe it's the voter. That's a lot of people saying that they did not vote in 2020, yet a significant amount of the no's say they are going to vote in 24. And I'm thinking, okay, that's how he's sitting at 25%. Actually, it's closer to 30. 25 is urban. And I'm thinking, all right, that's it. And then I look at it and it's really not. So the number, the support for those, the support for Donald Trump among black voters who voted in 2020 is only slightly lower than the support for among black voters who did not vote in 2020 for Donald Trump. So I'm struggling to find something real here. Now, that being said, education may have a role in this because it is a little bit less educated overall, but I'm talking about the overall sample, and that's why we're continuing, by the way. But black voters are less educated than Asian and white voters. So when I looked at it and tried to basically adjust and say, okay, let's model this thing out and see if it was, what we see in AP Vocast for 2020 or the co-op project for the Harvard, co-op project, which is the validated voter study. It doesn't matter. Both modeling it does not iron out to the 2020 vote. So it doesn't help Joe Biden enough. And so I'm thinking, all right, let's go and look at the self-reported vote in 2020 and see if any of these adjustments will correct that. Because I know it should be closer to 9%, 10%, 90-10, damn near. And yet, it isn't. So that tells me two things are happening. One, some people are lying. It's pure and simple. Some people are lying. Two, it may be an area thing. So maybe they're more upscale or, but again, that didn't seem to, it will help. It will certainly help to make more sense of the numbers. But what is the difference? About 5 points, which is interesting to me which isn't a lot compared to what we're seeing now. That doesn't get us to 9%. And that's the difference between urban and rural black vote shares for Donald Trump. Rural and urban, excuse me. Urban versus all, the average. The disparity is only 5 points. So, and by the way, look at where they're coming from. Let's go down. 13%, and of course we're getting to very small subgroups here, but 13% are from New York, 8% from Florida, 8% from North Carolina, 8% from Illinois. So pockets where there are concentrations of African American voters. This is very, it's just, there's no good hidden number here for Joe Biden. There isn't. The only thing I could say is, again, if we go to education, that's not that far off, actually. Never mind. It's not that far off. So let's go back to the 2020 vote. And by the way, you can just see here, I mean, the real problem here, here's 2020. Here's the 2020 vote. We know this isn't true. Okay? So that's why I'm thinking there's something else going on here. And I think what is going on is that they're lying. They're just lying. In much of this case, when it comes to this anyway, there's maybe there's a 5% difference when we can adjust for education and area. That will bring us down to about 19%. The rest, another 9, or actually, if we're at 19, then it's 7 to about 9.5%. That 7 and 9.5%. I mean, I don't know. I guess the majority of that is probably just a lie. They're probably just lying. All right. And then obviously, what does that mean? Because you can see that his vote share goes up from there. And again, this is all of this is just urban black vote. All right. Now you can see he's up to 25% of the black vote. So let's say 7 to 10%. Let's be on the fair side here and say 7. That tells us that Donald Trump's vote share is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 18%. That would be a good ballpark. 18% is still outrageously high for a Republican presidential candidate, but it is more believable, isn't it? Honestly, right? If we're being honest. So just doing these little exercises and trying to figure out what may be overrepresented, what may be a lie, and just being conservative with it, because of course we don't want to make too brash of assumptions, too brash of or too extreme. Because the truth is, we don't know conclusively about how much of each of those factors may be contributing to these results. It is fair to say that a good estimate for Trump's real world black vote share is going to be ballpark around 18%. That's a disaster for Joe Biden, an absolute disaster. All right, it's 1:15. We're going to have to another quick break. And then when we come back, we will do the last read and go over some of these other results. We have to look at the white working class vote. Oh, and the Hispanic vote. I want to show you the Hispanic vote. So important. So don't go anywhere. We're just going to take a quick 2-minute music break, and we'll be back in a hot second. I'll even leave that up for you. I want to go to the white working class next. All right, we could do Hispanic. All right, let's go to Hispanic vote share first, actually. Then we can come back. We got plenty of time to go back to our next read. Right now, I think that is the best bet. All right, we're back. Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. So we're trying to look, and for those who may have missed the last segment, because it does look like a bunch of people jumped on while the break was going. Just to let you know, we went over we went over the black vote share for Trump in this latest poll, and it's around 25%, just to let you guys know. And I'm trying to discern whether or not, looking at urban versus suburban versus rural, and then what is the education, trying to figure that out. What's the self-reported vote preference for 2020, which people lie about, but still may give us an idea. All of that, the short version is that I think it's fair to say Trump's real vote share is plus or minus maybe, that sampling error for subgroup, plus or minus like a couple of points in any direction, 18%. Not any direction, obviously, but I do think it's fair to expect Trump to get around 18% of the black vote. Could he get more? Absolutely. He could. Could he get less? Sure. But I'm trying to be conservative here because of the history of, and this is not our history, but I'm just making sure I don't get caught in the same trap as others, which is that there has been a history of pollsters overstating Republican share of non-white voters. That has not been the case for us. And just so people understand where we are here, let me get my old school. Hold on one second. I'll take this down and I'll pop this up in a minute so people can see it. I'm going to have to go in and, oh man, I forgot. Every poll, I have to go in and I think it's this one. Why is this not logging in? Every poll, I got to go into the history of, which is Data Wrapper, which we use, and put in and update everything here, or have somebody do it for me. But I'm a micromanager. I really am. I don't like to look. I don't like to tell people to do something without looking at it myself and seeing and making sure. There is the link to the visualization. Why is it saying it needs to be updated? I guess because the last poll was not saved. Perfect example. See what I'm saying? I have to go in there and save it to make sure that the second one is in there. But here is the history of our polling of Trump's non-white support. All right. This is a graph I showed a while ago. And this is what's interesting. You can see in the period from 2020 on, because of the public polling project. So what I did here was not, put every share of the black vote for the tracking poll in 16. We only had a couple of polls for the Epoch Times in 2020, and then we had our own for the public polling project in 2020. And then we started to really focus on the states in the public polling project in 2020. So that's why you see like a long duration of time here, a couple of, added. But what you do see are these periods of like, where there are spikes in his levels of support, which then recede again. It almost looks like the crisis and Leviathan in Robert Higgs's work, where you'll see this jump and then a recession, and that recession never recedes below the level that we measured prior to that spike. So it's always incrementally on the upswing. And that's the overall trend. And while we do have these dips down from period to time, from period to period, never cedes below the original support level. So the change from 2016, of course, in the Hispanic vote is plus 11, and the change from 2020 is plus 8. When it comes to black voters, we're talking about a change of 14%, and when it comes to 14% from 16 and another 9.4, from 2020. It's going to be higher this poll. When this poll is added, I'm just telling you right now. But you can see that we are not exactly somebody, a polling outfit that has overstated the Republican presidential nominee share of the black vote. We're very much in the realm of what it was. All right. So Hispanics in 2016, 29.8%. That is very close to what he got. And then, of course, the black vote, we had him at 8.1, very close to what he got. 2020, if I can find the last poll, there it is. We had Hispanics at 32.7, frankly, understating his support a little bit. And we had black voters at 12.3, depending on which one you believe, whether you believe the exits, the validated voter surveys, or the AP vote cast. Still very much within the realm. The voter validateds are 9. And then the exit polls are 12 to 13, things like, depending on which one you're looking at. I think it's 12.4 is Edison. So, I mean, like really close to what we had. And then it goes up and ticks up and ticks up and ticks up. So point being is that we're not somebody who has done that in the past, but I'm still nevertheless trying not to make sure that we do not fall into that trap as well. All right. Now we, by the way, have primary votes, and there are many examples of what appears to be first-time Republican primary voting for non-whites. And I'm not talking about the people Nikki Haley and other Democrats got to go out and vote for Trump to meddle with the primary. I'm talking about real non-white votes for the first time for a Republican, and they were for Donald Trump. They are all over Florida, Miami-Dade to from the Gold Coast to the Space Coast. I mean, they're all over. You can see it. Maricopa has tons of examples. Maricopa, of course, it's not a precinct level. I mean, there are different locations, but you can vote anywhere in Maricopa. Of course, we're more likely to vote closer to our home or our work, right? So those areas just happen to be in the most heavily Hispanic areas in the county. So this is, and I mean, it can keep going on and on. Clark County, the most Hispanic areas in Clark County, none of these candidates. Okay. So there's real world evidence to support this. Even in the Black Belt counties in the South, you could see what appears to be non-white black votes for Trump. And people are like, Rich, that's only 10% during the primary. And I'm like, have you looked historically at a Republican primary? It's like 98% white in these states. Maybe you get 4% non-white. It's a white electorate. So to jump to like these numbers in some of these states is a big deal, especially because it's very difficult to get somebody to actually vote in a primary. All right. And let's pull it up. When we're looking at Hispanic voters, you may notice, and sorry, I don't know what I was doing during the break. I didn't take my vape break, so I don't know why. Sorry. You may notice that the certain to vote level among Hispanics is about on par with black voters. This is 1 month for the first month in like, what has it been? 6 months, I think. I'd have to go back and check for sure. It's got to be 4 to 6 months. Hispanics were not higher than black voters, but they still nevertheless remain on par. That is very different. Hispanics have yet to flex their political muscles in this country. They don't vote at the rates that Asians, blacks, and whites do. So they're not as influential as they could be. And the last, like I said, half a year of polling or so, Hispanics have told us, whether it's nationally or in battleground states, that they are either equally or more likely or equally or more certain to vote in 24 than black voters. And that's a big deal. That's a very, very big deal. For two reasons. One, they could potentially have that influence that they haven't had. That's number one. Number two is that it's another piece, it's another anecdote, another piece of data, another data point to tell us that this change in vote share is real, because some of these people are clearly depressed to vote for Biden. All right. Obviously, it's a huge non-midterm vote, and we would expect that out of Hispanics. Only 71% said that they voted in the 2022 midterm. We know it to be the case that Republicans were missing a ton of Hispanic voters in states like Nevada. In California, turnout was abysmal in districts like CD13, for instance, absolutely abysmal. It is a majority Hispanic district, yet it was 70% white and turnout was only 50.8%. So we would expect this. About a quarter also say they did not vote in 2020. That number is big. Very big. All right, as you can see here, that's almost identical to the margin that voted for Joe Biden. All right, Donald Trump got 37%. So it's a little bit higher for Trump here, but he got 37%. All right. And I think the rest are just lying. That someone else number is full of crap. Those are people, and we've been talking about this for a while. If you add that 4% to Joe Biden, you get much closer to Joe Biden's actual number. Joe Jorgensen getting 1.1. You're telling me that 4% voted for people like Howie Hawkins? They're lying. They voted for Joe Biden, and they're ashamed to tell us that they voted for Joe Biden, so now they say someone else. Textbook. It's also why we do not wait for 2020 vote preference like other pollsters. There's two major reasons we do not. Major problems with doing that. One is the 2020 electorate is not going to look exactly like the 24 electorate or vice versa. I will challenge you to go and find two back-to-back presidential elections where the electorate was essentially the same. You will not find one. That's why we don't do this, and that's why we don't wait by party. The electorate will tell you what the party affiliation is. Self-reported. It's not registration. The electorate will tell you that. If you try to tell the electorate what it's going to be, you're going to make a mistake. That's putting your thumb on the scale because you think they're not telling you the truth. Maybe they are, maybe they're not, but it's not up for you to decide as a pollster. And that's been a great debate among pollsters for years. That's where I come down on it. Number two is that, of course, you cannot wait for the 2020 vote because there will be people who didn't vote in 2020. And you're essentially using empty variables. Variables with no values. You know what that is? A big fat assumption. And I don't like assumptions being any fatter because of the methodology. We already have enough problems. Why add an artifact to the poll? All right. Do you think the country's headed in the right direction or the wrong direction? Right track, wrong track, whatever. This is a little bit better, a little bit more positive than the nation is overall. White voters are obviously going to be significantly worse, but it's not great. 57%. This is raw. Remember, I should have disclosed this from the beginning. Of course, this is the unweighted result. However, you're going to see the demographic makeup. We're not exactly talking about something that's grossly unrepresentative. We're not. It's pretty much, it's pretty representative. 31.5% say it's headed in the right direction. 57.4% the wrong track, with another 11% saying they're really unsure or have no opinion. All right. Moving on. This is the we did the registered voter economic confidence index. As you can see there, the inflation index there is not looking so hot with Hispanics, but maybe it's not as bad as it was before. It's really the employment index that caught my eye. But we'll see. Considering they're supposed to be throwing all of these great, hold on one second, original reporting value, especially since they've been reporting all these so-called great numbers. All right, so among Hispanics, you can see that Joe Biden's going to be underwater by a few points, not a lot, but a few points. We don't get some of the numbers that other people get when it comes to Hispanics. 31% approval. I just don't know where people get that from. Hispanics are still they're getting to be now a swing group, and they're not that bad on Biden, but they're not positive. All right. And here's stuff like the economy, for instance. They always seem to tell us they approve of Joe Biden more on the economy than others, which is a little bit weird to us because he's so bad on inflation with them. They just seem to be separating those issues. Of course, underwater on immigration and foreign policy as well. All right. So they're saying, how would you vote? As you can see, without leaning anybody, it is a tied race with Donald Trump at 41%. So Trump has increased his support even from self-reported. And then when you lean, Joe Biden wins the lean, but you're going to end up with Trump somewhere in the neighborhood around 45% of the Hispanic vote. That's game, set, match, dude. I don't know what to tell you. We just went over the black vote share with Trump. Even if it's overstated a little bit, it's still historically high. And now the guy's going to clock 45% of the Hispanic vote. It's a wipeout. This is a wipeout. All right. Let's now go to the white working class. You know what? I'll just tell you. In the raw, because there is some other stuff I wanted to read to you guys. In the raw, you're looking at like 25% of the white working class vote for Joe Biden. 25%. Hillary Clinton was clobbered when she got around 32 to 34, depending on what you're talking about. When she got 32 to 34% of the non-college white vote. You're talking about a group that is, I don't know if we can say overrepresented in the Electoral College anymore, but I guess we can, because compared to the popular vote, we can say they're overrepresented. But I actually think, in my mind, it's like still that's actual representation. The Electoral College system is a good system to make sure that other people are not wiped out by the tyranny of the majority and larger states, right? Like nobody vote, for instance, for those who don't agree with that, let me just make this point. Nobody agreed and nobody voted on allowing massive levels of illegal immigration to come into this country and change the demographic makeup of major states like California. California was once, talking about Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon before, once a very Republican state. Nobody voted on that. Yet now, California, 3-4 decades later, is super liberal. It started to become a Democratic state not because white voters were changing their minds. They weren't. It started to become or I wouldn't even say white voters. I would say U.S. citizens. It's not that California became a blue state because U.S. citizens changed their mind. California became a blue state because politicians changed U.S. citizens. Oh my God, it's the replacement theory. Okay, the replacement theory is not a theory. It's true. It happened. What? I don't understand this. What are we arguing about here? Of course they did that. In fact, they did it because they read this book and flipped out. Oh my God, we have no path to the presidency under these current conditions. We better do something. By the 80s, everybody was sold on Ted Kennedy's idea to change it. And they did. And California hasn't gone back since. Now, maybe that'll change, which would be the biggest political irony ever. They imported their own demise. That would be hilarious. But that's not the case as of now, and that's the reasoning behind it. So now you have these, and New York's no different, by the way. You have these big states that let in these people decades later, generations later. Their children and grandchildren are able to vote. They turn states different colors. Meanwhile, they're sandwiching the entire rest of the country who didn't vote on it, who didn't get to have a say in it. And if you move to a popular vote, they'll make that national policy, even though nobody voted on it. So it's only the Electoral College that's keeping us, honestly, from subjugating. It's keeping them, like the coastal majorities, it's keeping them back from subjugating the rest of the country. That's the entire point of the Electoral College. So there's my argument for it, by the way. And that's whether Democrat or Republican wins. It's irrelevant. If Trump wins the popular vote but loses the Electoral College, then that's the Electoral College. The winner, the Democratic winner, is the president. I mean, that's it. There's a reason for the system. It's not unjust at all. There's a point to it. A whole lot of red on this board. I'm looking for the thing I wanted to read to you guys, and all I'm seeing is the new polls on Real Clear Politics. Just a ton of red. Okay. Oh, I wanted to read that before. It's a little bit too late here. Okay, but this is, do you remember what, here it is. We'll just skip to this one. Do you remember when I told you we were, because what does this mean when Trump, if Trump's got Joe Biden down mired in like 25% of the white working class vote. And by the way, with leans, it's 27 or something, 26. I mean, it's low. It's bad. So you're just not getting any more people convinced to vote for him. I mean, it's just even if this poll is wrong and it's understating him, what's he going to get? 30, 32, like Hillary? It's not enough. But we have to assume that that's not the case. We have to assume that in truth, that's where he is. Because we polled the 2016 race, we saw where Clinton was there. She wasn't that far down. I mean, it was bad for that time, and people were, stunned at it, but it wasn't what we're seeing here now with Joe Biden. Let me show you real quick too before we bring up. But anyway, we talk about what these demographics mean for other states, and I said I want to wait on the DRI, poll, which is the firm that conducts a quarterly survey in the state of Maine. And when we get closer to the election, they're going to start. Well, they have been in the past. I don't know if they continued their agreement or not, but they poll for the Bangor Daily News. And that was really the gold standard. And I wanted to see if they also can observe what we see nationally. This way, it all makes sense. And if you have these numbers with white working class this low, states like Maine are going to be either very close or they're going to go. States like Connecticut are going to be much closer than people expect. Now, will he win it? I don't think so. But they will be closer. And on and on and on. You're going to get in Iowa plus 15, the way we did. And Seltzer got Iowa plus 18. Or Trump plus 18 in Iowa. This isn't going to be a situation where you see some of these like battleground states or contested states vote just very heavily for like a Trump or one candidate, but yet these other states just maintain their normal margins. There will be some that do that, but that is not how elections work. For the most part, you're going to see a national, the states will move with the national mood. So I hate to say it, but like Joe Biden's internal polls actually did make a lot of sense to me. When Joe Biden won the popular vote by a little bit over 4%, Trump still won North Carolina by 2. If what we're seeing is the case nationally now, that would put Trump somewhere in the neighborhood of an 8 to 11 point win in the state of North Carolina. Well, Joe Biden's internal polling apparently has him down by 10 points in the state of North Carolina. So you like mock at that stuff. But PVI is PVI. And it is going to follow the normal rules. And PVI is partisan voting index. How much more Republican a state is. How much more Democrat a state is. Or, by the way, a congressional district, et cetera, at the federal level. All right. And just to show you what I mean, here it is. I just clicked on it before. This is which race and ethnicity. Of course, this is white, not Hispanic. What is the highest level of education you have completed? These are people that only did pre-high, secondary school, vocational school, or have a high school degree or GED equivalent. And you can see Joe Biden here. When it is just a Trump v. Biden head-to-head, Joe Biden is at, and I'm sorry, I said what, 25? Okay, so he's at 26. then you can see it highlighted there. For those who don't see it, Trump is just about 60, Biden is 26. When you add the leaners, Trump is going to go up above 60 a little bit. Joe Biden, ironically, does take those leaners, but not by much. It's very close. So he'll end up around somewhere in the neighborhood of 27, 28%, and Donald Trump will end up in the 60s. So, I mean, damn. I don't know what to tell you. It is what it is. Let's say when you add a generic somebody else to that equation, notice what you see happen among the white working class. Donald Trump doesn't move at all. His initial supporters stick with him 100%. However, with Joe Biden, he drops a point. The rest of the undecideds, the rest of someone else, third party, is part of the undecideds, and 7%, about half actually. The rest is Joe Biden supporters that bailed on him, and then the remainder of that is the undecided vote. And then, of course, when we split them again, half of them remain with that third party. Then Donald Trump winds up, hoovering one more than Joe Biden does, and the remainder who lean. So that's Trump once again going up a few more points, and Joe Biden lagging behind under 30. So this is significant, really significant. When you add Kennedy specifically, that's when Trump loses about 2 points. What does Biden lose? Basically nothing. Now, there will be other demographics where this changes, and how could I put it? Everything is like, we have to look at this as like a net an equation that gives us a net result. So there will be other demographic groups that hurt Biden more. But as I have been trying to explain to people over and over and over, if these voters that we're looking at right now didn't have another choice, they would go for Trump. Those who in this demographic group who are Biden voters, for some reason, they don't seem to like Robert Kennedy either. So it on net hurts Trump a little bit. Now, is it enough? No, because Biden's still only at 26%. So no, it's not enough. And by the way, don't tell me this is a small sample. It's not. 633, voters, interviews. It's not a small sample. However, check this out. When you actually name other choices, oh wait, this is the lean, so you can see the lean, obviously, which does benefit Trump a little bit. When you name other choices, boom, that's where Biden gets hurt with the white working class. So they don't like Kennedy. Biden voters, or people who initially, let me put this better, people who initially chose Joe Biden as their guy when it's just him versus Trump, and then, those who maintained when we threw Robert Kennedy at them, yet when it was a generic someone else, they chose someone else. I hope you're following along here. When we get to the full ballot with Chase Oliver, Cornel West, Robert Kennedy, they don't go for Kennedy, but some of them do go for Cornel West. Some of them do go for Joe Stein. And Biden falls to only 24%, 23.9%. And Trump, by the way, does not dip significantly at all. Now, he doesn't, I mean that from the other scenarios. From the head-to-head, he does. Because head-to-head, he's going to take over 60%, and Biden is going to be in the 20-somethings, which means Trump is going to, if Biden is stuck at like 28% when fully leaned, that's so bad. It's so bad. Trump will be above 60 again. That's going to rival Ronald Reagan's 1984. It will beat it. Ronald Reagan's 1984 margin when you just consider the two-party vote share. So I guess the better news, I guess the takeaway is that the more candidates on the ballot, the better news it is for Donald Trump. But if you're in a situation where it's just Robert Kennedy on the ballot, it could be detrimental to Donald Trump. Now, again, the lead is so big that I really don't think it would change the course of the election, but it would maybe cost him a state that is very, very close that he otherwise would have won. Like a Maine, for instance. But then again, DRI, they've polled it. It did actually, right? It did cost, if they're right. It was like a 1-point lead for Biden or something. So technically, it could. Anyway, if you had to make a decision, this is the 5-party lean. Trump wins the 5-party. I guess you could call it that. The 5-party lean, Trump wins that, followed by Kennedy. Jill Stein comes before, again, Chase Oliver. She even comes before Joe Biden, by the way, and Cornel West. Chase Oliver doesn't get anything. This is an interesting situation here with the Libertarian candidate. And I'm not sure it's like Oliver specific. All right. Because when we were polling Lars Mapstead, it was the same thing. They get what they get in the first round. And often that first round will put them just ahead of the Green Party. But when you combine people when you combine the initial intention with leans, the Green Party may have a more significant role this year than people are giving them credit for. The fact of the matter is, like the Libertarian Party, they have prior vote history and prior vote shares, which makes it easy for them to get on the ballot. And they also easier in many states to get on the ballot than if you're not. And of course, they have infrastructure. It's just that it appears the Libertarians' appeal this year is very, very, very small. And that stinks for Joe Biden, by the way. That stinks for Democrats. Jill Stein, honestly, could end up with more votes than Chase Oliver. I really believe that. It's not a matter of believing it. It's not even that I really believe it. That is what our polling has showed for months. And those who didn't are just falling under the same trap. They just didn't lean people. If there's a poll that didn't lean and they have the Libertarian candidate ahead of the Green Party candidate, you can't fault them for it because we do too until you lean. And then you don't. And then that's not the case. All right. And as you can see here, Democrats are doing slightly better than Biden when it comes to the white working class vote. Republicans are doing worse than Trump by several points. Even when we're talking about the someone else third party, they still trail Trump by about 2.7, I believe it is, with their vote share when it comes to the white working class. And Democrats are doing about 1.5 points better than Biden. So it is what it is. Republicans don't have the trust of some of these voters. They just don't. Obviously, who do you trust to handle the issues? Let's look at this. And I did want to read the other thing, but let's go over this first. It's 1:51. If we don't have time for something, I'd rather it not be time to read an article, right? You all agree, I hope? The economy and jobs. Holy shit. Look at that number. 59 to 25 in favor of Trump. Inflation and cost of living. 61 to 23 in favor of Trump. Immigration and border security, 64 to 18 in favor of Trump. Crime and safety, 59 to 24 in favor of Trump. National security and foreign policy, 58 to 24 in favor of Trump. Labor and union issues, 54 to 24 in favor of Trump. Folks, Oh, the Teamsters have a primetime slot at the Republican National Convention, by the way. Good move. Could anybody foresee? Let's rewind, if you're old enough, if you're as old as me. Let's rewind time and let's go back to 2012. And let's see. Could you imagine the Republican candidate, Mitt Romney, holding a lead like that on labor issues over Barack Obama? What about John McCain? What about George Bush versus either Kerry or Gore? Preserving Social Security and Medicare. Do I have to run the clip again? I don't, right? Bill Maher said it all. 54-28 in favor of Trump. This, again, used to be a major issue. This is what got Democrats in the 40s with the white working class. Abortion rights and restrictions. 51-28 in favor of Trump. Now, when we do all together, obviously that's much closer. But this is like a big deal. A key part of the electorate. Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Ohio. Hell, even chunks of Illinois, Missouri, Indiana. When we see Pike come in, one of the first counties of the night, Vigo County come in. Threats to democracy and corruption. 53-25 in favor of Trump. The Russo-Ukrainian War. 55-22 in favor of Trump. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict. 55-19 in favor of Trump. Wow. Wow. And what is, of course, their most important issue? Inflation and cost of living. 35.1%, followed by the economy and jobs at 18.2%, immigration and border security at roughly 17%, 16.9%. Abortion rights and restrictions, which is, by the way, the right way to ask that question. You cannot ask people what their most important issue is and then skew that issue to one side only. Like gun control. It would have to be gun restriction or Second Amendment restrictions, or I would say gun control and gun rights. That's, I think, actually how we word it. Climate change and the environment. Immigration and border security. See where I'm going with this? There are different ways that people look at some of these issues. And if you ask it just, abortion, what? Abortion rights, abortion restrictions. What is it? If you just say abortion, people are going to think your most important issue is my most important issue, whether or not I can have an abortion. If you just put gun control, people are going to think, you know what? This is about gun control, not gun rights. I'm passing this up. By the way, when we ask people to specify some of the others, you're going to always see all of the above. In this day and age, one says putting Donald Trump in jail. One person. One person. 2 years ago, it would have been a lot more than that. It would have been. And it would have been more than that saying that. It would have said, putting the insurrectionist Donald Trump and all of his insurrectionist buddies from January 6th in jail. The intensity around this position, this is why I just cannot believe Joe Biden wasted hundreds of millions of dollars in the spring running ads that nobody gives a rat's ass about. Because nobody even believes it. They instinctively believe now it's just Joe Biden trying to put his political opponent in jail. All right. And by the way, when you look at who these people are, this is why Donald Trump runs ahead of Republicans when it comes to this demographic. You're looking at like, half say they're only half say they're Republican. About a quarter, a little less, still call themselves Democrats. And Joe Biden's not winning any more of them than that. Think about that. He's winning 2% more. That's it. 5% say that there's something else, and about a quarter as well say that they're independents. Look at that. Both of them landed on 143 interviews. Isn't that crazy? They're moderate. They tend to be more conservative, but then obviously, those who have more of a degree, but they're moderate in general. They're not very liberal at all anymore. Things have changed. If they said they were a Republican, we asked them, what kind of Republican are you? Less than a third said that they were traditionalist Republican. The rest of them said they were either America first or unsure, no opinion. We've talked about this before too. That is a load of crap. You'll see that Trump's margins, when we put out the crosstabs, you're going to see this. Trump's margins among white working class voters who call themselves America first versus those who say they're unsure or have no opinion will be very, very similar. The only significant one, the only one that's going to present a significant difference in his vote share is those who call themselves traditional Republicans. All right. That's about it. I mean, that's really most of these people, or I would say the plurality, not most. That's a plurality of these people say that they have who identify as an independent. A plurality of them say that they share little in common with either party. And Democrats actually have a slight advantage over the independent vote with this group, but they're not winning the independent vote with this group. So why is that? It's because those who share little in common with either are equally aligned. And of course, those who lean more to the Republican Party are voting for Trump in higher numbers. All right. Would you consider yourself to be a populist? It's very low. Very, very low. And let me just get you how we say it, how it is prompted. Let me see if I can get that. Excuse me. Let me do it in another tab so guys don't see personal information. I have to look at it real quick. I want to read you the exact prompt on the populism index because I find it funny that the white working class is not at all higher than some other groups. And, even those who are educated. And I think that's really interesting. So the prompt reads as follows. We'll read this to them first. Populism is a range of political stances that emphasize the idea of, quote, the people, unquote, and often juxtaposes this group with, quote, the elite, unquote. That said, as you understand it, would you consider yourself to be a populist? I'm stunned between this now the second poll we've asked people about whether or not they consider themselves to be a populist, and I'm rather stunned that so few of them do. Very, very few. Now, many are unsure, but considering, I think, speaking of books, I think Gavin Wax and Troy Olson are right. I think the default ideological position, the knee-jerk, go back to your corner position for America has always been a populist one. Going back all the way to when there wasn't even a country. The revolution was a revolution of ideas led by yeomen and farmers, not by elites. Arguably, the only so-called elitist there is John Hancock, constantly the odd man out. Who was his right-hand man? Sam Adams, a populist for sure. They didn't believe in top-down. They believed in ground up. They didn't believe in factions of powerful interests. They believed in diversifying where you vest power so that the bottom does not get steamrolled. Very, very interesting, man. I know we're over. Just give me 1 second. Something I wanted to. Okay. So if we get rid of all, we just do all here. Let's give you the top issues for the Raw all the way. Whoops. And by the way, you can see in gender here, I mean, everything looks pretty well spot on. It's actually a little bit more male, but not that big, not a lot. It's 49-51. Where is it? Oh, I don't want you guys to see that. Embargoed. You can see with the trust to handle issues, Trump has a lead in everything except for abortion, where Joe Biden has a tiny lead. The two are basically tied on the preservation of Social Security and Medicare, and they are, even though Trump has a slight edge on threats to democracy and corruption, we found the same thing Ann Salzer found. I know others keep finding some crazy ass results. That Fox poll is clearly weird ass outlier. This is the case now. It is what it is. On the economy, Trump has a very significant lead. On inflation, he has a very significant lead. His biggest lead is on immigration and border security. He leads on crime. He leads on national security and foreign policy. He even leads slightly, even though it's basically tied, on labor issues. And that's because of the margin that we showed you before with the white working class. They're tied. Joe Biden's a 0.2 percentage point lead on Social Security and Medicare. That's not even a lead. That is dead ass a tie, rounded to 40. And then abortion rights, Joe Biden has a 5-point lead. That's it. I wouldn't even say it's abortion rights and restrictions. So remember that. Threats to democracy and corruption. Trump has roughly a similar lead that Joe Biden has on abortion. The Russo-Ukraine war, it's a significant lead for Trump, as is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which is a huge lead. So, I mean, I don't know where else they could go from this. Interestingly enough, white working class, but economy and jobs second only to inflation and cost of living, while the rest of the electorate put immigration and border security a little bit ahead of the economy and jobs. Both of them, however, said inflation and cost of living remains the number one issue. You can see climate change all the way down, crime all the way down, even foreign policy all the way down. Abortion rounds out number 4 at only 9%. Threats to democracy and corruption, which Fox News said was the number one issue, got 7%. I mean, damn. I don't know what to tell you. It is what it is. All right, it's 2:05. I know we got a boogie woogie. Battleground Live at 5 today with Sean Parnell. Don't miss it. On Rumble. Keep an eye on my locals page. Of course, I will share it. And then later, quite frankly, I'm going to be up and tired tonight. But it was supposed to be on yesterday. That was my screw up. I also screwed up Talk of the Town this morning. My damn thing now, battery being dead. So we're going to have some makeups here. All right, so I think we're going to have a lot more time anyway tonight, quite frankly, to answer questions. So, of course, I'll let you know exactly when it is. Keep an eye on my social media and you will see it. All right, what am I missing here? Don't forget to support the Public Polling Project. Share it far and wide. Contribute if you can. We'd appreciate it. But also share it. This way, more people can become part of our crowdfund base, make contributions, and take a low. It would be a lower burden on everybody else. Let's see. What else am I missing? I don't think I'm missing anything other than that. We'll finish this poll. We'll rack it up. I mean, at this point, we're over 3,000 interviews. So there's not going to be any huge revelation here. It is what it is. It is what it is. All right. We'll wrap it up, ship it out, and we'll talk about it more on Friday. All right, guys. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Tune in on Friday. Don't forget to like the video if you like it, share it far and wide. And of course, if you're on YouTube, mosey on over to Rumble, subscribe there and like there. That would be a great help to us. But the best place, of course, to follow us is right down there below. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. Links are in the description for everything. Thank you to the sponsors at Freedom Gold. Let me just read you this before, and I will leave you this as a parting word. Here is what Daniel Street said about the Supreme Court ruling and the postponing of the sentencing date for Donald Trump in the wake of it. And he said, you remember when how I said the one real problem with the New York case, the Bragg case, is that it went to trial too early. By continuing the sentencing to September 18th, the judge fixed that for the Democrats. If that case doesn't get disposed of somehow between now and then, the judge will have a real chance to interfere in the election. And then I responded saying, I do remember that. How on earth could he do this and sentence him to jail or confinement within the final 2 months? It would be insane. And he said it would be crazy and hopefully it won't happen. But the crazy card is their calling card. So I think the judge will be forced to set aside the guilty verdict and probably the indictment itself after the ruling, because the Supreme Court said official conduct had to be expunged and could not be presented or argued to a jury. So here Daniel is saying that he agrees with Robert Barnes that this shouldn't even now, in the wake of the Supreme Court ruling, arguing this in front of a jury is a no-go on what the Supreme Court just ruled. The judge allowed Bragg to present a host of official statements from Trump to the jury. This was surely done to the grand jury also. In other words, as he was president. Jeff Clark thinks the grand jury indictment would have to be scrapped and redone completely. Shipley said the verdict should also be set aside. Mike Adams said the same. You know, I missed that, to be blunt, but I went back over some of the reports about evidence presented in the case, and I think they are right. Plus, this is a federal law issue to federal courts, and SCOTUS could get involved. Remember, SCOTUS did issue a warning in there, and that was directed, I believe, so does Daniel, to these courts, even state courts, especially them. You know, that was a separate comment they made, basically saying, we will be able to review you, so watch out. So with that in mind, I'm going to peace out. All right? Peace. Everybody have an incredibly safe Independence Day. I love the 4th of July. I'm too busy to go run to the border and get fireworks this year. That sucks. Really sucks. My kids are very disappointed. The neighborhood is very disappointed, but it is what it is. So in the meantime, I'm going to try to barbecue and smoke a brisket for everybody, among other things like wings, and show them a good time. The pool is looking pretty, and I hope you guys do the same and remain, safe. And, you guys want to drink and have a good time? It's your purview, man. It's Independence Day, baby. You do what you want. Just don't get in that car drunk. All right? Hang out with your friend. Have a designated driver. Do whatever. Be safe and enjoy it. You want to stay. There's always an accident every 4th of July, every Independence Day. You want to be around for November. Trust me. All right, guys. None but love for you. Happy Independence Day. God bless this great and wonderful country we are all trying to spare. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers. Don't forget the Battleground, live at 5. Yeah. Sean Parnell, don't forget.